Time to hit the road. Drive safe. Get ready to turn left. Turn left. Stay right.
Kilometers per hour in construction zones. Your safety and that of our
News and World Report. Appointments available at hss.edu.
So glad you're with us here at WNYC this Sunday evening. Up next here, it's the TED Radio Hour. Coming up tomorrow morning on Morning Edition, well, those of us here in New York and in New Jersey have been getting some experience lately with a feeling that's maybe a little more common in California, the earth moving under our feet. Tomorrow we'll hear from a geologist at Rutgers University to find out if earthquakes are becoming more common in our area or if maybe just it feels that way. Morning Edition starts at 5 a.m. bright and early here tomorrow, and we hope you'll join us for it.
Turn left.
This is WNYC, FM, HD, and AM, New York. This is the TED Radio Hour. Each week, groundbreaking TED Talks.
Our job now is to dream big.
Delivered at TED conferences.
To bring about the future we want to see.
Around the world.
To understand who we are.
From those talks, we bring you speakers and and ideas that will surprise you,
You just don't know what you're going to find.
challenge you,
We truly have to ask ourselves, like, why is it noteworthy?
and even change you. I literally feel
Finally,
like I'm a
we are
different
here.
person.
Yes. Do you feel that way?
Ideas worth spreading. From TED and NPR. I'm Manoush Zamarodi. Coming up.
Touch is our most important sense.
We have millions of receptors for strong touch, light touch, the temperature.
It lets you know, let me pinch myself or touch this thing. Am I here? What is real?
On the show today, the skin we're in. First, this news.
From NPR News, I'm Janine Herbst. President Trump and Russian President Putin are holding a summit on Russia's war in Ukraine this Friday in Alaska. Trump says he wants to broker an end to the war, but there's been no let-up on the battlefield, and Ukraine hasn't been invited to take part. NPR's Greg Myrie has more.
The summit itself is a big deal for Putin. Trump has been very critical of him recently. Now Putin has a chance for a face-to-face meeting to rebuild that relationship and perhaps ward off more sanctions. Now, the Ukrainian concern is that Putin will make some small gesture, like a partial or temporary ceasefire, that doesn't address any core Ukrainian concerns. Then the Ukrainians will be in the awkward position of rejecting that offer, and the Russians will accuse them of not wanting peace.
NPR's Greg Myrie reporting from Kyiv, Ukraine. Vice President Vance told Fox News today the White House is working on a trilateral meeting to include Ukrainian
of the Trump administration, that the UK currently spends about a third of U.S. levels on innovative medicines, and that U.S. firms Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, and Merck often pay rebates to Britain's National Health Service to essentially cap drug prices, which can leave them a fraction of what Americans pay. The British government already agreed to review its pricing practices as part of its new trade agreement with the U.S. Now, the Sunday Telegraph reports it also plans to boost spending on new medicines to bring it up to U.S. levels, though it's not clear when that will happen. For NPR News.
Reports the fire has now grown to more than 100,000 acres.
Firefighters have struggled to get much of a containment line dug around the Lee fire because of gusty winds and extremely dry fuels. The concern continues to be trying to stop it from burning east toward the small ranching and hunting town of Meeker, Colorado. When megafires like this ignite in overgrown forests made even drier by climate change, there aren't a lot of options for containing them until there's cooperation from the weather. There's little change expected in the short-term forecast, so fire managers are focused mainly on protecting structures where it's safe to do so. Some good news is that resources are pouring into the region, thanks in part to it being a relatively quieter than expected summer wildfire season in the West so far. Kirk Ziegler, NPR News.
The final day of the Wisconsin State Fair was canceled today because of heavy rainfall. That rain in around 6 Midwestern states led to water rescues, power outages, and road closures. The National Weather Service issued flood watches and warnings for parts of Kansas, Iowa, Nebraska, Missouri, Illinois, and Wisconsin. In Wisconsin, the Milwaukee area was hard hit with up to a foot of rain in some areas, causing the U.S. Triathlon to cancel its sprint and para-triathlon national championships in the city, where thousands were expected to compete. Forecasters are predicting repeated rounds of heavy rain along with hail, damaging wind, and isolated tornadoes possible. You're listening to WNYC News. Good evening. I'm Tiffany Hansen. Now 4 minutes past 8 o'clock, we have 81 degrees. The MTA says major crime in the subway fell last month to its lowest July level since the NYPD began tracking in the 1990s. WNYC's Catalina Ganella has more.
The NYPD says major felonies in the subway were down 8% in July compared to a year ago. The city also recorded no burglaries in the system last month. That's as average weekday ridership climbed to nearly 3.9 million trips. Officials attribute the trend to more police patrols, additional cameras, and other safety measures. Some advocates have questioned whether crime statistics fully capture riders' experiences. The MTA says more station lighting, platform barriers, and upgraded fare gates are coming later this year.
Otherwise, we have an air quality alert in effect until 11 p.m. this evening. It should be clear with a low around 70 for your Monday. Again, a high right around 90 degrees. Right now we have 81 here in Soho. It's 8:06.
Support for NPR comes from Imaginable Futures, supporting the Institute for Women's Policy Research, working to close inequality gaps for women and improve the economic well-being of families. IWPR.org.
And when I got home, my mom said, "Do we need to have a conversation?" And I said, "I don't know, do we?" And she shrugged and I shrugged, and that was our birds and the bees conversation.
Join us for more True Stories Told Live next time, how we and our parents evolve. That's on the Moth Radio Hour from PRX.
Tonight at 9 on WNYC.
At the roundabout,
It's the TED Radio
take
Hour
the
from
first
NPR.
exit.
I'm Manoush Zamarodi. Many of us, most of us, are used to getting notifications on
Exit
our phones
now.
and smartwatches all day long. Pings, vibrations that we quickly learn to ignore. But what if your device communicated to you in a completely different way?
This device kind of more feels like a person reaching out. And you can imagine it like a smartwatch.
This is researcher Catherine Kuchenbecker. In her lab, she works at the forefront of haptics, inventing ways to add a sense of touch to our technology, making it feel more responsive, tactile, maybe even alive.
A smartwatch, so just like a rectangle that's 3 centimeters by 3 centimeters, like 1 inch by 1 inch about. And when we send it a command, it will extend and go down and touch your skin. So imagine I reach over and just gently touch your arm. It's soft, so it feels very pleasant. It can touch you, make contact, and then it can press harder. And it can also vibrate. It can make all kinds of different signals on your skin.
Can I, just to sort of understand it more, I'm picturing wearing like an Apple Watch, but maybe it pokes me some of the hours. Maybe it touches me and presses down gently at some of the other hours. Maybe it does the regular vibration other hours, but this could be useful to me in that I ignore touch when it becomes habitual.
Indeed. So just like you choose which alarm you want to use to wake up in the morning, you could choose how do you want your devices to notify you that it's time to stand up. So I have a few people in my team who live far away from their partner. And maybe this is creepy, but maybe you could send not just like a little buzz, but like a pat or eventually a caress. Or a congratulatory one, like a high five that comes in with your chat. Or I don't know, maybe something else. A hug. What would a hug feel like if I wish my wristband could give me a digital hug?
I'm picturing you call the grandparents on Zoom, but you also have a place where kids can put their hand and they can hold hands with their grandparents who are half a world away.
Indeed, that's a personal connection to supplement or augment video chat is definitely one thing. You could have like a zone on your phone or on a touchscreen where you could feel some haptic signals.
You could kiss someone on the screen.
One could. We haven't prototyped that or tested it yet. I mean, I'm sure people will try all kinds of things.
Is it fair to say that despite the fact that we have touch screens, we actually use that sense of touch far less than maybe we did before the digital age? I mean, I'm just thinking about all the hours I spend looking at a screen, touching nothing, taking it all in with my eyes and ears.
That's a very insightful comment. And so touchscreens feel our touch. They vibrate, and that's good for getting your attention or telling you something happened. But touch has so many other facets, and those dimensions are really all missing from the interactions that we have.
Is that problematic? Do you feel that in the last 2 decades or so that's become more of an issue for people, that they are less, well, I suppose, disembodied in some way because they're using the sense of touch less in their daily lives?
I do. Touch is, I would argue, our most important sense and also the most unappreciated because we have it so consistently. We can rely on it every day. In some ways, it is us. It's our body. Touch often grounds us to reality. it lets you know, let me reach out and pinch myself or touch this thing. Am I here? Where am I? What is real? What is not? And so when virtual worlds don't have anything you can feel, or screens feel my sensation and show me different materials, but I can't actually feel a digital representation of those materials, that's a disconnect and something that we are working to improve on.
Through touch and temperature, your skin is constantly taking in signals from inside and outside your body in a uniquely personal way. And yet, our skin is the most public part of the body too. It's always on display. How do we use our body's largest organ to interpret the world? And how does the world use it to interpret us? Today on the show, the skin we're in. From cutting-edge technology to personal journeys of self-acceptance. Ideas about the role our skin plays in our lives now and how technology may change it. So, back to Catherine Kuchenbecker. Today, she's a director at the Max Planck Institute for Intelligent Systems in Stuttgart, Germany. But her work on haptics started about 25 years ago as a PhD student.
I really started getting interested in touch when I started working on my PhD with my advisor, Günther Niemeyer at Stanford. And he had helped invent the Da Vinci surgical robot, which allows surgeons to remote control these long, thin instruments that reach inside of patients and do minimally invasive surgery. And he posed this problem of how can we let the surgeon who's controlling this robot feel what the surgeon is touching across the room, because we both intuitively had this feeling that making surgeons do operations without being able to feel is going to make it more difficult. So when the surgeon is moving his or her hands and is touching things, if they don't feel anything, let's say they're pulling on a suture to try to tighten a knot, if they can't feel how tight they're tying that knot, just like if you were trying to tie your shoes but your hands are numb, you may accidentally not tighten it tight enough, or you might pull too hard and tear the suture in the patient's skin, or you might bump into something and not realize that you hurt it or damaged the tissue.
So Catherine and the team started thinking beyond push and pull and considering all the other messages that the skin takes in through touch.
Your sense of touch is actually much broader than only forces. You can also feel where something is touching you on your skin. You can feel temperature getting warmer or colder. You can feel vibrations. So similar to how your ears can hear fast vibrations, your skin can actually feel vibrations up to 1,000 hertz, 1,000 cycles in a second. And that's much faster. You can only move your hand back and forth like maybe 1 or 2 or 3 times in a second. But if you take 2 objects and you hit them together, they cause vibrations that you can feel and that signal to your brain, oh, you hit something, stop, or that was a little violent, or you hit the end of the rope.
When a scalpel cuts through tissue or a needle pushes through the skin, there's a vibration between the 2 materials. The researchers realized that they could measure those vibrations and then simulate them with motors, making virtual surgery feel real.
We could have a source of really rich, interesting information, and then we could very easily play these signals for the surgeons. Their right hand could feel the vibrations of the right instrument, and the left tool could feel the vibrations of the left instrument, and it's almost like their fingers were on the instruments themselves.
The tool is only used for teaching surgeons how to operate. It's not actually used on humans. But Catherine says it speeds up the training process immensely.
The cool thing is it feels very natural. They don't have to learn some like artificial touch language. They didn't have to do any extra learning. They just immediately start operating, moving much more like an expert, like being more careful and more precise, not being so violent, because once you can feel, you can automatically correct for accidents or collisions that are a little more violent, or if you were supposed to hit something and you missed it, you didn't quite get it, then you feel that. So again, we're able to let the surgeon or the person learning how to be a surgeon close the loop and feel the consequences of the motion so that they can move more precisely.
These days, Catherine and her PhD students are developing all kinds of haptic technology, making touchscreens that feel textured, creating virtual reality gloves that make it possible to feel what you see, and building robots like HuggyBot.
it was motivated. My PhD student at the time, Alexis Block, she and I were both living far from our families and wishing, wow, wouldn't it be amazing if we could just like, when you're having a bad day, just like your mom or your dad could send you a hug, or maybe you want to send your sister or your brother or your kid a hug to give them some support, like that physical, warm, soft embrace, right? That like often just helps calm you down and know you're not alone. So we had the idea of creating a hugging robot, and it was named HuggyBot eventually.
In a video done at the lab, you can see a robot wearing a purple sweatshirt with a screen for a head, smiling and asking, "Can I have a hug, please?" Their arms outstretched.
Most robots in the world are not things you would ever want to hug. Many of them are pretty dangerous, and you should stay far away from them because they could actually really severely hurt you. And even robots that are maybe safe to be around people, they usually have hard outer surfaces and they're cold, and that makes them not very pleasant. So HuggyBot is soft and warm and responds to how you touch it. We found out it's really important first that the robot let go of you when you're ready to end the hug. No one likes a robot or a person who hugs too long.
Creepy.
Yeah, definitely creepy. We even did that in the study. We had the robot hold on 5 seconds too long to prove that it's really important that the robot can feel when to let go. But then we realized there was this whole other level of the language of an embrace where if your partner squeezes you, it's nice to squeeze back, or if they pat you, maybe you rub them on the back. Like there's a call and response, like a communication in this touch interaction. So then we worked on giving HuggyBot a sense of touch that would let it feel these intra-hug gestures, what the person it was hugging was doing. And so we custom made it. It's an inflated torso, kind of like a beach toy. Inside, we put a pressure sensor that can measure the air pressure inside of HuggyBot, because when you squeeze it, that pressure goes up. But then we also added a microphone, and these two sensors are just in there listening inside of HuggyBot's body, and then it can feel and hear through the microphone when you pat it or you rub it. There are characteristic sounds, the haptic interaction on the robot's back, that we can measure those things, and we can in real time. So we have little windows of data. We have a little machine learning algorithm that figures out with pretty high reliability, oh, that was a pat, that was a squeeze, that was a rub, or the user didn't do anything. So to give the robot some understanding of what's happening to its body during the embrace.
When we come back, how humans reacted when HuggyBot gave them a big embrace. On the show today, the skin we're in. I'm Manusha Zamarodi, and you're listening to the TED Radio Hour from NPR. Stay with us.
I'm Arun Vengopal from the WNYC Newsroom. Since Congress voted to claw back federal funding for public media, WNYC has seen an incredible outpouring of support. Thank you to the thousands of listeners who've already stepped up to help fill the ongoing budget gap these cuts have created. If we haven't heard from you yet, it's not too late. Start or increase your monthly sustaining donation now at WNYC.org.
WNYC receives support from Pine Street School in Lower Manhattan, accepting students from nursery through 8th grade, offering immersive Spanish or Mandarin and a global IB curriculum. Learn more at pinestreetschool.com.
This is WNYC 93.9 FM and AM 820, NPR News and the New York Conversation.
Support for the TED Radio Hour comes from Indeed, committed to giving job listings increased visibility with relevant candidates through its sponsored jobs feature. Learn more at Indeed.com/NPR. From Raymond
Stay
James,
left,
a firm focused
then
on
turn
transforming lives, businesses, and communities through tailored wealth management, banking, and capital market solutions. Disclosures at RaymondJames.com. And from the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation at macfound.org.
It's the TED Radio Hour from NPR. I'm Manusha Zamarodi. On the show today, the skin we're in.
And we've been talking to Catherine Kuchenbecker. She is an expert in haptics, how we can interact with our technologies through touch, from our smartphones to robots like HuggyBot, a robot built by Catherine and her PhD student to, yes, hug people. HuggyBot knows when to embrace, it knows when to let go, it can pat, rub, and squeeze. But do people actually like being hugged by a robot?
We had people try the robot, and this is why experiments are really important. We guess that if they patted the robot, they would want the robot to pat. If they did nothing, they wanted the robot to do nothing. But that's actually not at all what we found. First of all, if people did something to the robot, like patted it and it did nothing, they did not like that. They thought that was a very rude robot that was kind of dissing them or ignoring them. So it was very important that the robot would respond. The second important thing was when people were just standing there hugging the robot and it spontaneously patted them or squeezed them or rubbed them, they really liked it.
They liked it?
They liked it. People really loved it, especially when the robot was squeezing. It made people feel like this robot loves me, this robot cares about me. And of course, it's just a robot, but it evokes this like, oh wow, I feel supported. And so we actually then programmed HuggyBot that when there's periods of silence in the embrace, like nothing's happening, the robot will proactively squeeze you, so it's thinking about you. And people will really like this, but it's still important to let go when the person wants to let go. When the person lets go, the robot always lets go.
It feels like we're at this point where we are developing, some people are developing relationships with artificial intelligence, which is still based on vision, text, or also more artificial voices talking. But the next chapter of that seems to be communication based on our skin, our sense of touch, and the emotion that can be imparted with that. But then I think also people will worry that we think that we can substitute real human touch with this new kind of technology.
It definitely comes up. Actually, we were surprised. We did a later study that's not published where we compared hugging our robot with hugging a real human. And in some ways, people preferred hugging the robot, although it doesn't feel as comfortable. They didn't have to worry about whether the woman we'd hired to give hugs was enjoying hugging them. They could hug the robot as long as they wanted to. So it's just like a one-sided interaction, and you don't have to stress about, is this woman who's been hired to hug me, is she really enjoying this hug as much as I am?
A sense of touch that delivers an emotion to you without any expectation of returning an emotion.
Yeah. We are absolutely not trying to replace humans. Like a hug from someone you know and care about is going to always be better than a hug from any robot. Here we were comparing to hugging a stranger or like a friendly person who you don't know. I mean, we actually had to register stuff for people, and then they knew that her job was just there to give you hugs. But my job as a researcher, our job is to ask questions, figure things out, be honest about what we find, report them so that other scientists can read about that, learn from what we learned about, and figure out what to do going forward to adapt technology to help people, to help society.
That was Catherine Kuchenbecker. She's a director at the Max Planck Institute for Intelligent Systems in Stuttgart, Germany, where she leads the Haptic Intelligence team. You can see her talk at TED.com. On the show today, the skin we're in. And now a different angle on touch and technology. We want to turn to the idea of artificial skin. Technology being developed to mimic this all-important organ. This research is in its very early days because replicating the sensations that our skin sends to our brain is extremely difficult.
So the skin is a complex system where there are a lot of things that are actually all working together at the same time.
This is Anna Maria Coquita. She is a materials scientist who spent the last decade trying to replicate skin. The actual idea of creating artificial skin isn't new. It's been around since the 1980s, often used for burn victims. But there is something missing from today's artificial skin.
There is the possibility to reconstruct the skin more or less, that it kind of looks similar to before the burn, but still the sensation is lost.
The warmth of your coffee cup in the morning, water running through your hands as you wash them, or all the different textures you touch, smooth, rough, soft, or sharp. All of those sensations are captured by your skin's receptors.
We have receptors that are for strong touch, light touch, that is for the temperature. We have millions of receptors.
And all day long, those millions of receptors are bombarded with all kinds of information.
And then they transmit this information through electrical stimuli to the brain, thanks to the nerve connections. So it's a very complex system.
And because the skin is so complex, replicating all those sensations has been really difficult until now.
This is a piece of skin, of artificial skin.
Here's Ana Maria Coclita on the TED stage, where she unveiled Smart Skin.
We have, for the first time, produced an artificial skin that can respond to 3 stimuli: touch, so force, temperature, and humidity. And it can do this also at an unprecedented resolution. So it's a very tiny device, and so this means that it can sense objects that are actually smaller than the objects that can be sensed with our skin. So